Although there is a Gemara in Maseches Yoma, Daf Samach Zayin Amud Beis, that is perhaps apropos to the situation we're living in, as well as this week's Parsha. Tan Rabbanan, the Gemara says, Es Mishpatai Ta'asu. The verse says, you're going to fulfill my mishpat, my judgments. Dvar Mishal Malei Lo Nichtavu Din, Hu Sheyichtavu. Things that had they not been written down in the Torah, so logic would have told us that they should be written. The Eluhain, and these are examples: Avodas Kochavim, V'gilei Arayos, V'shichas Damim, idol worship, immoral adultery, and Shvichas Damim, and murder, V'gazel Birchas Hashem, as well as robbery and Birchas, blessing, which really is a euphemism for cursing the name of Hashem. The verse continues, the V'yas Chukusai Tishmaru, and you should also observe my chukim. And what are chukim? What are these statutes? Things that the Satan is challenging and saying to us, and challenging, with what's the reason? Eating pork and wearing shatnez, chalitzas yibama, taras mitzoros, yir mishtaleach, other types of other mitzvos that are perhaps the absolute reason for them are hidden from us. And of course, the chief of that would be this week's Parsha, Zos Chukas Torah. This is the ultimate chok of the Torah with regards to the mitzvah of para aduma, bringing of the red heifer. So in the Gemara comments, Shemet Tomer Maisa Tohim. So now, lest you say that that those are considered empty acts, Kamalomar Ani Hashem. That I am Hashem, Ani Hashem Chakaksiv, Ve'ein Lecha Reshus Lahar Bahem. I am Hashem, I decreed them, and you do not have permission to go ahead and ponder them. Does it mean that we really don't have permission to think about them? We do try to come up with some reasons for some of them. I think a couple of years ago we gave a whole Shabbos Shumadrash on a reason behind the Se'ira Mishtaleach, the goat that is sent away. What does the Gemara mean when it says that you shouldn't think about it? The Rav Soloveitchik has a fabulous essay. It's in the book Reflections of the Rav. It's entitled Surrendering Our Minds to God. And he discusses the idea of chukim, and then he discusses the idea of mishpatim. And chukim, the idea of laws which you don't understand, he writes that the observant Jew accepts the Torah even as a patient follows the prescription of his doctors. He takes those medications, and he doesn't necessarily understand exactly why it works, but he goes ahead and he does it. And that itself is a symbol of emunah. That itself is a symbol of faith. But what then does it mean to us? We don't have any reason to it. Are we just doing acts? So he says the observant Jew never asks why in regard to mitzvah obligations. He must ask first, how is it performed? And he also says what lessons are to be derived from them. But he doesn't ask why. He suggests that maybe there's something I can learn from this, even if I don't necessarily understand the absolute reason, the absolute motivation that Hashem is using in order to command it. There's something I can learn, there's something that I could use, and from that thing, there's a way that I can grow as well. Perhaps this is applicable to situations we're in as well. Why did this pandemic happen over the last couple of months? So I am not going to go and try to figure out why exactly what Hashem's cheshbon was. But I think what we are commanded to do and what we are responsible to do is to figure out what we can learn from it. Yeah, I don't know why the pandemic happened, but there's certainly valuable lessons about the importance of family, the importance of chesed, the importance of tefillah, the importance of community. All of these things were emphasized in different ways, and we were forced to think about them in different ways over the last couple of weeks. And we could certainly ask the question, what lessons can we derive without necessarily understanding the idea of why it actually happened? So that takes care of the issue of chukim. What about what the Rav writes about mishpatim is I found even more profound. He asks, okay, what is the reason for mishpatim? Especially if you add in, as the Gemara seemed to say, that, well, there are things that even if Hashem would not have written it down, we would have come up with them anyways. Well, the Rav says, well, let's take a look at some of those examples. Avodas Kochavim, Gilei Arayos, and Shvichas Damim. The idea of adultery, idolatry, murder. He says, yeah, these are all strict halachos, which obviously we all understand and would never go ahead and violate. So Rav turns around and says, really, are you sure? We certainly condemn murder. Murder is certainly not allowed. But what about euthanasia? What about abortion? What about some of these things on the edges, which perhaps modern medical ethicists might say, oh, that's not really considered murder. But yet the Torah does tell us that it's murder. And the Torah does tell us that these are things that need to be These are things that need to be condemned, even if perhaps it's going in the face of what society is teaching us. The truth is, the Gemara then adds in those other two examples as well, which perhaps Gezel, the idea of robbery. So would anybody think to say that robbery should be okay? Well, look around the last couple of weeks at the way people have treated the sanctity of other people's property, or the sanctity of the public's property, and it's been sort of allowed to say, yeah, you can. We understand why you would want to go and loot a store, or why would you would want to tear down and destroy pieces of public property. But the Torah says no. The Torah recognizes the sanctity of property. The Torah recognizes the idea that there are things that are mine, there are things that are not mine, and I have no right to touch things that are not mine without the permission of the person that owns it. And that's a religious value. That is a Torah value, which perhaps is being challenged a bit today. And the final thing of Birchas Hashem, the idea of cursing God. So religion has come under attack as well, and it's our responsibility to say, no, we stand up for Hakadosh Baruch Hu, we stand up for God, we stand up for religion, we stand up for Torah, even if perhaps it flies in the face of perhaps what would be considered social norms. So as we read Parshas Chukas, so the first thing we think is more challenging is the idea of chukim, the ideas of halachos that we don't understand. Well, there certainly is what to grow from it, and if we think from them, and if we think about Torah in general, mitzvos that we observe, we're very careful about mitzvos that we don't understand. The details of kashrus, the details of a lulav and esrog on Chukas, how a mezuzah is supposed to look, how tefillin is supposed to look, those could all qualify as hukim, and yet people are very careful about them. It's when you enter into the realm of mishpatim that perhaps people become a little bit less careful, saying, "Oh well, I could figure those out based on my own thoughts." So we're reminded that no, that also is being guided by the Torah. But the Torah never really distinguishes over the course of the Torah itself, gives you a category of chukim and a category of mishpatim, a category of things that we don't understand, and a category of things that we do. Rather, it's all mixed together, because really, in effect, they're all chukim. They're all mitzvos from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and are responsible to observe them, keep them, celebrate them. And with that, we'll be able to be Mekadesh Shem Shemayim. We'll be able to sanctify the name of Hashem for us, for ourselves, our communities, and for the entire world. Wish everybody a good Shabbos. Hope to see everybody soon.